Hello, I'm Bishop Joe, and this is the fifth of our six-part series on invitations to dinner with Jesus. In each session, we're looking at a story from St. Luke's Gospel, and today our story comes from the beginning of chapter 19. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. A man was there named Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but on account of the crowd he could not, because he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree to see him, because he was passing by that way. When Jesus came to the place, he looked up and said to him, "Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." So he hurried down and was happy to welcome him. All who saw it began to grumble and said, "He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner." Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Look, half of my possessions, Lord, I will give to the poor. If I have defrauded anyone of anything, I will pay back 4 times as much." Then Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost." So, invitations to dinner with Jesus. But this time, Jesus invites himself, doesn't he? Jesus looks up at Zacchaeus and says to him, "Hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." The Bible tells us that Zacchaeus made his money by collecting taxes. And the system worked like this. The Roman Empire assigned a certain amount of tax to each region. Then it sold to the highest bidder the right to gather in that tax and send it to Rome. As long as the right amount of tax was handed in to Rome each year, the local tax collector could charge as much as they liked and keep the profit for themselves. In effect, tax collectors in the Roman Empire paid for the right to steal from people. For this reason, the popular imagination lumped together robbers, murderers, and tax collectors. Now, for tax collectors, the real money was made by charging duties on travel and trade, tolls for use of roads, entry fees for markets, vehicular taxes on carts, even the wheels on the carts, the donkeys that pulled the carts, import and export taxes. You can see how this could be a real money spinner, since nobody really knew how much was owing for each of these taxes. You could stop any cart on the road, make up a sum of money, and charge them that. And since Jericho was on a busy trading route and was itself a famed exporter of agricultural produce, it provided a particularly rich picking for its tax collectors. Now, Zacchaeus was no ordinary tax collector. He had bought up a series of these licenses for Jericho and the surrounding area. Then he hired men to run the business all over this area. So the best model is to think of Zacchaeus as a mafia boss running a bunch of mobsters, and a traitor, a collaborator with the occupying army as well. Well, so now we've seen all of that background, surely the first surprising thing about today's story is that Zacchaeus was so keen to see Jesus. Why does he want to see Jesus? And the second surprising thing is that Zacchaeus was having such a difficult time fighting his way to the front of the crowd. Presumably, had he chosen, he could have simply had some of his heavies clear a path. Well, for whatever reason, he decided instead to climb a sycamore fig tree, a species native to Africa which also grows in Israel, and he hid there, where he could see without being seen. Only Jesus did see him and stopped to call to him, "Hurry and come down, for I must stay at your house today." the words Jesus uses are heavy with meaning. In the Bible, when someone is invited to hurry, it often means that God is at work. And often in the New Testament, when we're told that something must happen, it means that it's part of God's plan of salvation. Understandably, perhaps, that's not how the crowd sees it. All who saw it began to grumble, we're told. He has gone to be the guest of one who is a sinner. Given that Zacchaeus is the local mafia boss, it's not hard to see why they're upset. So, this is the fifth of a series of invitations to dinner with Jesus. But will you be getting an invitation to this meal? Shouldn't think so. Only Zacchaeus' family and the mobsters who work with him are invited to this dinner. Perhaps some of the occupying force as well, the Romans. And even if Zacchaeus had invited anybody else, surely no one would have accepted the invitation. We wouldn't have gone, would we? I mean, he's the local mafia boss. But Jesus invites himself. And then when Zacchaeus stands up to make the customary speech at the dinner that evening, the third surprising thing in the story happens. In his speech, Zacchaeus promises to give away half of his wealth to the poor, to poor people in the area. And then he says that he will pay back fourfold any money that he has stolen. It's actually quite difficult to see how Zacchaeus is going to do this, since all of his money is stolen money. That's his inherited money. Perhaps he's going to give away his inheritance too. Either way, he's going to be left with nothing by the time he's kept his promise. Left with nothing but a shirt on his back. So, the people of Jericho regain some of their money in the coming weeks and months as Zacchaeus repays them. Presumably this cheers them up quite a lot. But Jesus invites them and us to rejoice, not for that reason, not because they got their money back, but for another reason. Today, Jesus says, salvation has come to this house because he too, Zacchaeus, is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek out and to save the lost. To be lost is to be in the wrong place, isn't it? So Jesus speaks about the lost coin, which is not where it was expected to be, the lost sheep, which had wandered away from the sheep pen, the lost son who'd walked away from his family. And here, Jesus describes Zacchaeus as lost too. Zacchaeus has wandered far from God in search of ill-gotten riches and has left the community of his people as he collaborated with those who oppressed them. Jesus says that Zacchaeus is lost. But Jesus is the good shepherd who has gone and searched out for this lost sheep and has now found him and brought him home. Now again, Zacchaeus has been returned to his right place as one of the children of Abraham. How will the crowd treat Zacchaeus once Jesus has left town, do you think? Presumably, he'll need a new way to earn a living. He'll need new friends as well. Protection even from the local mobsters with whom he used to associate. Will the people of Jericho give Zacchaeus what he needs after he's returned to them what was rightfully theirs? I don't know. What do you think? This is a story about repentance. We may find it difficult to identify with Zacchaeus, the mafia boss. And yet, we're not mafia bosses, but we too have things in our lives which are out of place, bits of our life which are lost. Zacchaeus, at the start of this story, surely recognised in some way that he needed to put things right. And yet it was only when he spent time with Jesus that he found the strength to actually put them right. So Zacchaeus can teach us too about how spending more time with Jesus in prayer and in Bible reading, how that could transform our lives and set us free. This is also a story about offering or not offering forgiveness, and about finding the grace to allow other people to make a new start in life after they've messed up. Doubtless, the people of Jericho found it hard to forgive Zacchaeus. Perhaps some of them found it impossible. But Jesus points the way by inviting them to rejoice that Zacchaeus, who had been lost, is now found. So on reflection, perhaps not an invitation to a meal after all, this one, but something better. An invitation from Jesus to spend more time with him each week and to work on forgiving people who have hurt and offended us.